Hi, everyone. I wanted to share something with you, and I decided to make a video because I thought if you're driving home or have some time to just sit and listen, this would be something you could listen to. I wanted to share this with you. My team and I, on a call a couple weeks ago, were having a discussion, and we were talking about this book we have here, Emotions and Essential Oils. And I love this book, and I've used it a lot, especially when I'm doing scans on people to kind of find out what kind of oils their body can use to balance out. And what I love about this book is it's the emotional side of the oils. So, for example, there's every single oil in here, and there's also blends. And so, a lot of times we're thinking about the physical side of our health and how we can help ourselves feel better physically, but the emotional side is very important as well. And so, anyway, this is a fabulous book. I highly recommend it. It's on Amazon, available on Amazon for I think under $20. But it's a nice way to look at your oils and how they kind of match up with emotions. So, like I said, I've used this book quite a bit, but I've never actually read the beginning. And there's a really nice story, and that's typical for me. A lot of times I do things backwards. But there's a really moving, touching story in the beginning of this book that I want to share with you. And like I said, a team member brought this to my attention, and I'm so glad she did. So I'm going to read this to you, and it's a little bit long, but bear with me. So it's called Kallie's story. The following true story, written by Kallie's mother, perfectly embodies the steps involved in emotional healing from the time of trauma through the healing crisis and on to wholeness. It beautifully illustrates how the use of essential oil facilitates healing physically, emotionally, and spiritually. We sincerely thank Kallie and her family for allowing this story to be included in this book. So here's the story told by Kallie's mother. When my daughter Kallie was 2 years old, she accidentally pulled a crock pot full of boiling meat down onto herself, severely burning her face and torso. Second and third degree burns covered a third of her body. For a month, Kallie recuperated in a special burn unit where she received heavy narcotics along with other medications to help numb the intense pain that accompanies such severe burns. 2 surgeries were necessary to place skin grafts on her face, neck, and shoulders. When Kallie finally came home, she had to wear a plastic mask on her face and tight-fitting bodysuit for 6 months to keep the skin grafts from warping. As her mother, it was horrifying to see my 2-year-old child suffer so much pain. I felt helpless, but Kallie was a very strong girl who tried her best to adapt to the excruciating medical procedures, such as having the dead skin scrubbed from the burned area or working through physical therapy. During the many times when the pain and trauma were too much for little Kallie, she would mentally leave us. I could see it in her hollow eyes. The first time I saw this was when the initial burn happened. In those few seconds right after the hot liquid touched her precious skin, she wasn't there. Due to the combination of heavy narcotics and unbearable procedures, she was physically and emotionally numb or just plain absent during most of the month that she was hospitalized. After we got home, it took a while to get back to regular life. Kallie was just so fragile and delicate. I tried my absolute best to physically and emotionally recover her and our family from this event, but it was quite a challenge. The months and years went by, and I started to notice that Kallie was extremely numb to pain. She was a very active, adventurous girl and would have quite a few falls and injuries just like any other child, but she would rarely acknowledge that it hurt her. Sometimes it was disturbing. I remember one visit to the doctor for her regular vaccines. Kallie was lying down on the table, and the 2 nurses poked both her legs 2 times each. I was watching her face, and there was absolutely no physical or emotional reaction whatsoever. She was unfeeling. She would often get nasty gashes or scrapes, and I wouldn't even know about it until later when I would give her a bath or change her clothes. I would ask her where she got hurt, and a lot of times she wouldn't even remember. She was also very self-conscious of the physical changes the burn had caused. When Callie began school, she would try to hide her scars by covering them with her hair or coat, or by walking with her face pointing towards the wall and away from onlookers. I never pushed her to talk about it or do anything that was uncomfortable for her, but I gently tried to give her opportunities to share her thoughts and feelings. When Callie was about 5.5, she started to forget what happened. She knew that something big occurred a long time ago, but she couldn't remember the details. Sometimes there was a trigger that sparked her memory, like the word burn, or a fire, or even a bath. Then, with fear and confusion in her eyes, she would start asking, "What happened to me, Mom?" Around this time, I was introduced to essential oils. As my mother and I learned about the oils and their benefits, we thought of Callie. Helichrysum and vetiver seemed like the perfect fit, and we began treatment. I was so excited in the beginning, mostly thinking of the potential physical healing, and largely unaware of the emotional benefits. Callie was full of faith. She immediately said, "I know it's going to make my burn melt away, Mom." I had no idea what was coming. After only a few days of using the oils, Callie started to act differently. The first thing I noticed was that she started to complain of physical pain, for which we could find no reasonable explanation. Every time she would get the smallest cut or bruise, she would have major anxiety about it. Very opposite from her recent tough and numb to pain reactions. She would cry for hours about a tiny cut or sliver and would say through tears, "Is it ever going to go away?" Callie spent a large portion of the day worrying about the small things, the smallest things. It was almost impossible to convince her to take a bath. She became extremely picky about the clothes she wore. If clothing touched her wrong or was at all tight, she wouldn't wear it. Any mention of her being burned, or even the word burn, would cause extreme fear. Anxiety attacks surfaced. Sometimes she would randomly sit on my lap and just cry. I finally realized Callie was going through a healing crisis brought on by the oils. It made perfect sense. Every odd thing that she was doing directly correlated to the burn or to her experience in the hospital. With the help of essential oils, her body was expelling or ejecting all of the pain and hidden emotions that were buried for so long. We guessed that the healing would probably last for the same amount of time she had stayed in the hospital. This was exactly right. It lasted a month. I tried my best to validate what she was feeling and to help her as much as I could during this time. I learned that if I missed a day putting on her oils, it was a bad day for her and the rest of the household. So I kept up with it, and the results were phenomenal. After this difficult month, I began to notice that words, which had previously triggered a negative reaction from Callie, did not seem to bother her. She had a totally new and positive perspective. I could see plain as day that she was no longer coming from a place of fear. Instead of being self-conscious or shy, she was secure, strong, and confident. A totally different Callie. As her mom, I can see without a doubt that these essential oils gave her such a beautiful new outlook on herself and her past traumatic experience. On the morning of Callie's 7th birthday, I was telling her about the day she was born, and she said, "I don't remember that, Mom, but I do remember when I was burned." I carefully asked, "What do you feel when you remember it?" She replied in her bubbly, secure voice, "Let me spell it out for you, Mom. Okay." Words cannot express how very grateful I am that my little Callie could heal emotionally. So I just think that is a really moving story, and I know other people have had this experience as well. And in fact, I feel like I have had this experience, not in because there was any one traumatic experience, but there are times in your life that are hurtful and you hold them in. We tend to hold them inside, and they kind of just fester and they sit and they stay down there. And so in using essential oils over the past years, I have felt just freeing feelings from some of the things that have happened in my past. For example, my parents' divorce and different things that as a young child were hard to understand. And so anyway, I wanted to just tell you all that sometimes you may have a bad or feel not exactly right or not exactly well when you use your essential oils. And I want you to know that that could be a way of your body healing. and you freeing your body from some things that are inside. So anyway, I hope that was helpful to hear that story, and just to know that you have to trust the essential oils, that they really are working on your cells and working in your body. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.